for the peak in those temperatures on Monday or Tuesday, where we could see highs of 34, perhaps even 35 degrees across the southeast, with plenty more sunshine to come.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5, of course. I'm back, everybody. It's the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. I'm, of course, Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Trelo, and guess who? Benjamin Butterworth. He's back on the show, yes? Tonight on the show.
Lord Hermar despises this country.
I'm a GP and Labour can't fix the NHS.
Keir Starmer's spine is seeking asylum.
Labour want to kill off landlords.
And give it a rest, Karen. Could now be illegal to say.
At 6 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. Yes, welcome to Saturday night's biggest TV show. But before we get started, there's some breaking news. Well, surprise, surprise, at Glastonbury. Outrage as pro-Palestine singer leads chants of death to the IDF during a live broadcast. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. But, of course, it feels like I've been gone for a month. It was only a show, really. It feels like I've been gone for much longer than that. Though, judging by lots of other things going on, the panel had a great time last week. I did tune in to watch the Saturday Five all the way in Greece. And didn't Dr. Renee do a magnificent job? Well done, Dr. Renee. It was absolutely fantastic. So good, in fact, it was almost worth the NHS losing a few hundred appointments while she was on air. Rumour has it Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy and Health Secretary were streeting or drawing up emergency legislation to stop NHS doctors moonlighting on panel shows. Something about cutting waste. I assume they mean airtime, not patients, but you never know with this government, do. Joining me as ever on my loud-mouthed and opinionated panel, Will Kingston, who recently said he loves the smell of napalm in the mornings. Don't worry, I've reported him to the Prevent programme. The last thing we need on this show is an immigrant terrorist, isn't it? And Dr. Renee is here. Oddly, she's been recommending more trips abroad for me as a cure for some mysterious illness that developed before last weekend. And he's the only man who went from chart-topping one-hit wonder to boardroom thunder, best known for telling us to let Jabari move before Alan Sugar told him to move into the building. Apprentice star and certified comeback king Trey Lowe. And a man, Benjamin Butterworth, the man who starts World War III wherever he travels, it seems. Yes, he's back on the Saturday Five, stepping in for Kai Wilshaw tonight as he takes some much-needed time off. Kai was last seen handing out non-crime hate incidents in the Welsh countryside. Simply just couldn't get enough of it. Of course, we want to hear all of your views. Please send them in to gbnews.com/yoursay. And while you're there, as you know, I want to get your Ask the Fives in. We read them out every week. We read them out more than any show on GB News. So if you're going to be in Your Say, get in there now. No topics are off limits. And we, of course, give you full control of the show from 7 p.m, so you get to vote in a poll of what we should be debating in the Saturday Scrap. So here are the poll options. Should we have a one-in, one-out migrant plan with France? Should the NHS abide by what a woman is? And should Parliament dumb down its language? But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday night evening news with Mark White.
Good evening. The main headlines from the GB News Centre. The Glastonbury Music Festival has been hit by fresh controversy after one of the acts was heard chanting death to the Israeli military. Punk duo Bob Vylan, the act performing directly before Irish-language rap trio Kneecap, appeared to lead crowds in chanting Free Palestine and death to the IDF.
Free, free! Free, free! Alright, but have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
Well, the BBC chose not to stream Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury after one of the band members was charged with a terror offence in May. A number of politicians, including the Prime Minister, had called for the Irish hip-hop group to be banned from the festival. It follows allegations that band member Liam Ohana displayed a flag in support of the proscribed terrorist group Hezbollah during a gig in last year. The rapper is currently on bail and due in court in August. He denies the offence. Economists are warning tax rises are likely in the autumn following the government's major U-turn on welfare reforms. The Prime Minister announced the concessions yesterday to try and avert a rebellion by more than 120 Labour backbenchers. The changes mean only new claimants will face stricter checks to decide their eligibility. The Prime Minister said fixing the welfare system is a moral imperative.
We cannot take away the safety net that vulnerable people rely on, and we won't. But we also can't let it become a snare for those who can and want to work. And everyone agrees that our welfare system is broken, failing people every day. A generation of young people written off for good, and the costs spiralling out of control. Fixing it is a moral imperative, but we need to do it in a Labour way.
Thousands of Iranians gathered in Tehran for a state funeral for the military commanders and scientists killed during the conflict with Israel. Coffins draped in the Iranian flag bearing portraits of those killed were carried through the city centre. The conflict ended with a ceasefire earlier this week after the US became directly involved by bombing key nuclear sites in Iran. Border Force has seized £100 million worth of cocaine at a UK port. The drugs were found under containers on a ship arriving into London Gateway Port from Panama. It's one of the largest cocaine hauls since records began. Meanwhile, the National Crime Agency is investigating after a major weapons and drug seizure in Dover. 20 firearms, 320 rounds of ammunition and almost 180 kilograms of ketamine were recovered. Amber heat health alerts are now in force across much of England as the country faces its second heat wave of the summer. Temperatures are soaring this weekend and set to peak on Monday, with highs of up to 35 Celsius possible in London and Cambridgeshire. Woocha. Anybody would think it was the summer. Right, now it's over to a group who are agreeingly disagreeable. It's the Saturday Five.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back, everybody. Of course, it's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday Five. Over the next 3 hours, the biggest debates, hottest topics and entertaining interviews. But first, we start with the breaking news from Glastonbury. And punk band Bob Villain, I'm guessing it's a play on Bob Dylan, have sparked uproar after their chants of death to the IDF and free Palestine. Oh, sorry, I was getting bored of reading those words. The lead singer dedicated a song to what he called every single band that is using their platform to speak up for the Palestinian people. Here is what happened.
Free! Aye, but have you heard this one, though? Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF!
Yes, we have gone to the BBC for comment, but have not yet had a reply. You know what? As many of you at home will be, I'm quite sick of hearing it all the time. I just, you know, at what point does it just become noise? Just noise into the ether? Will, what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting you yawned there, Alex, when you were reading out those words, because the funny thing is that these people seem to think they're countercultural. They seem to think that doing this is edgy. They seem to think it's cool, when really what they're chanting is precisely what the establishment wants them to chant. Yeah. It's precisely what everyone in that audience wants them to chant. It is the least courageous thing that those people could possibly do. So you're right. It is completely and totally conformist.
You know, it is also part of the only acceptable racism to the Western world. True. You can't be racist in any other way apart from if it's Jewish people. And, you know, the fact that we have a woman in prison, a mother, for 31 months because she wrote some words on Twitter, and yet you've got this man here standing, talking to hundreds of thousands of people, calling death to people, is shocking.
Benjamin, you were just out in Israel not that long ago.
Yeah.
What do you make of seeing that at Glastonbury?
Well, I mean, what's really depressing about seeing it at a music festival is that about 10 days I went to the site of the Nova Music Festival, which is where Hamas murdered about 370 innocent people, most of them Israeli, some of them from all around the world. And I was there with a survivor of that. And she described the utter horror of these young, liberal, music-loving people at a festival. And so to know that Hamas targeted people just like the ones at Glastonbury, then to see those people at Glastonbury chant something as ugly as death to the IDF, the Israeli Defence Force, which is basically death to those Jewish people, I think it's deeply depressing. I tell you what would be countercultural would be to say free Israel from the terrorists all trying to murder it.
Oh, hear. Trey, many people will say that this is, you know, the freedom of artists. They've been doing this sort of stuff for years. What, you've been in the music industry yourself.
Yeah,
what do you make of that?
I would agree. I mean, if you look, there's been years of protests against things like the Vietnam War. You know, you had BLM protests. You've got years where musicians use their voice in order to raise protests. I think this probably goes over the mark, obviously. Anything that's chanting death to anything is probably wrong. But I think I actually do like the tradition of musicians actually taking a stance on political issues. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the issue is when there's any incitement to any death or any violence. That's where I'll take it.
Trey, in theory, I agree with you, but the thing that people find so appalling about this is how obviously there are the double standards when it comes to the defence of Israel or the Jewish people, and yet how hard people are cracked down upon if, for example, those words were targeted, say, at people of the Islamic faith.
I think it's definitely true, isn't it? I think there are, some things that are seen as cool. I mean, we certainly had it during the apartheid era in the 80s, where it was cool to do that. But I think some things are just going to be something that young people see, because we can't ignore some of the suffering that is genuinely happening in Gaza. And bear in mind, some of those people in Gaza are also victims themselves of the regime that's in control of Gaza.
Dr. Renee, on you also here, KG has said, some people will do and say anything for publicity. There are useful idiots in the audience repeating his nonsense like a bunch of parrots. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. And I was actually just going to say, the problem is that they're just preaching to this audience who don't even understand what's going on. They have no real concept about any of this history. And the other thing is, Trey, these are not young people. Have you seen the average age of Glastonbury?
That's so true.
That's good at the ticket prices.
Right. Well, that's enough of that, isn't it? Let's get on with the show, shall we? And as I'm in the position of chair this week, I would like to take advantage. Yeah, not for long. Dr. prescribed me some very serious drugs.
What else is new?
Anyway, in my opinion, Keir Starmer is finished. In less than 12 months, the Prime Minister has bumbled, botched and backtracked his way through number 10. It's not leadership. It's a permanent three-point turn, rivalled only by endless Top Gear reruns. Captain Hindsight, as Boris Johnson once called him, well, that's proving to be more accurate than a political nickname in recent memory from other Prime Ministers I could think of. But let's rerun the greatest U-turn hits so far, shall we? Winter fuel payments, U-turn. Starmer promised not to raise taxes, U-turn. North Sea oil drilling. Quite a little U-turn there. Yes, Ed Miliband's gone very quiet, hasn't he? Grooming gangs, the biggest scandal in modern British history. Well, Starmer called those who were calling for a national inquiry, and he said they were jumping on a far-right bandwagon, didn't he? Yet another grovelling U-turn on that one. The island of strangers speech, hailed as one of the only honest things he's ever said. He's since walked back on that one too, saying he now regrets it. So much, so far. Anyway, it's only been a year, hasn't it? And Ed Miliband's definitely gone into hiding, hasn't he? I haven't seen that bloke for weeks. And then there's the piece de la résistance, the Prime Minister solving the great riddle of our age. Keir Starmer finally figuring out what a woman was after the Supreme Court ruling. How embarrassing. Even his own backbenchers are now tearing up his policies. Confidence in Sir Keir Starmer is disintegrating. This is a government not on the ropes, but in total freefall. And to get this part started with my panel, I'd like to ask them all, in each, what words of advice they give to the Prime Minister. Will, let's start with you.
To quote, I'm testing my British history, I've forgotten, but my words of advice are, in the name of God, man, go.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want him to go because I don't want Angela Rayner in control of the country, so I would say, please call an election.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer actually did give some advice to a previous Prime Minister once. He said that they should not break promises they can't keep, which maybe the Prime Minister should take his own advice for a change. Trey, what advice would you give the Prime Minister?
Do you know what I'd say? It's probably to take Thatcher's words, isn't it? This lady's not for turning. I think he should just get to the point where I'm going to stick to where I am going and I don't care what the consequences are. I think that's what he should do. That would show some conviction.
Benjamin?
Keep calm and carry on.
Carry on what? You turning?
Carry on.
Carry on not delivering?
Because I think he's a very calm person. I think he's a level-headed person, and I think he's got a long-term plan, to borrow a phrase that David Cameron once had.
Yeah, it's that long-term plan is it seems to be very short
We're all out
term,
for
doesn't
a couple of years and then try and rescue it.
That Observer interview this week was so fascinating because I continue to be amazed at the lack of political nous of this government.
Yeah.
Like, it was so obvious. You had the photo of him with the kitten. You had the photo of him with his wife. They're all just desperately trying to say, he's not a robot, he's a real person. And it's so insulting to our intelligence. But then you add on to that, the one thing we all think about him is that he doesn't have any sincere beliefs, and as a result of that, he's willing to go this way and that. And what's the one big thing that comes out of that? Is yet another U-turn on the only thing he's ever said that's correct, which is the Island of Strangers speech.
I think he's too good for us in many ways.
Oh, Benjamin,
I do want to hear it, though.
For you.
No, because
we are not worthy.
No, I think he's a very ordinary person, a down-to-earth person, a reflective person. Do you know what? Most politicians, Boris Johnson, won't admit mistakes that ruined his entire parliamentary career. You know, the reason he's not an MP, he still wouldn't accept that he'd lied and misled the public. Whereas now we've got Keir Starmer, who even while in office is willing to admit mistakes, willing to admit misjudgments. Do you know what? In most workplaces, you'd find that really valuable in a colleague.
Do you know what? You would be right if that's what he was doing, but he isn't. What he's doing is looking at where the polls are going and trying to change his mind so that he at least isn't minus 27 in his popularity ranking.
Yeah. Trey, look, looking at this, I mean, I love your opinions because it's an everyday man's opinion, in my opinion. What do you think the general public are thinking about this government?
I think it is. I think Dr. Renee is absolutely right. They're looking at the polls and thinking, let's do that. Or what they're saying on TikTok, let's do that. That's what I think people are saying. It seems cynical. It doesn't seem sincere.
But there is another side to that, though. I mean, all politicians do that. And you can say, oh, are they following the polls? People always used to say Tony Blair was obsessed with focus groups. But the other side to that is, isn't this how democracy is meant to function?
Nope.
You know, the grooming gang uproar, he listened to that and he amended where the government was. Surely that's what you want.
My biggest problem, Benjamin, is that the Prime Minister only seems to act, not even off of focus groups or from the communication from the public, he only seems to react when a court order a judge has told him. I mean, the grooming gang, the National Inquiry, what was it, to take a QC to do a full report, which was months. We all knew we needed a National Inquiry, for goodness sake. It took him months and waited for the QC and OK, we'll do it now. It seems to be the case he can only take orders, the same as the Supreme Court. He didn't know what a woman was until the Supreme Court ruled it.
Well, he respects law and order, which is better than Boris Johnson ever managed, so I think we've had an upgrade there. But do you know what? It would have been politically, it would have been easy for him to just say, yes, have a massive inquiry, let's spend a fortune on it. I tell you what, if government-led, judge-led inquiries fix the problems in this country, then they would have been fixed a long time ago. He was trying to say that it's politicians' jobs to fix it, not just getting another report out.
But the problem you have, Benjamin, is no one believes you. No one believes you when you say that, because when you say that and when he says that collectively, because everyone goes, this guy doesn't have any conviction, he doesn't believe in anything. There is nothing really, there's no North Star which he is aiming towards. You said he's got a long-term plan. Because he's got no conviction, absolutely no one knows what that long-term plan is, because he doesn't know what that long-term plan is.
The long-term plan was in the manifesto, and we can see from the amount of U-turns...
some of it. Most of it wasn't.
Yeah, well, that's true. A lot of it wasn't in the manifesto. The bits that were have already been U-turned on. That's the problem. And I think what people desire so much in this country is something... This is why people like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it's because...
come off.
No,
that is true.
Hear me out.
That is true.
He won in a landslide in America. And where the British people see it the same way. But hear me out for a second, because I think this is the reason why Farage does well, and because he's the British Donald Trump, in my opinion, is that he says things in a way that people trust and believe, because he has been a man of his word for the last decade.
Conviction politician.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump can't decide what the tariffs are on the second biggest economy in the world, China, from 1 hour to the next hour.
Because he believes in
he doesn't believe in anything. The guy came to the election last year saying he wants no wars and no violence, and then he spent the whole time, not that I actually disagree with this, but he spent the whole time involved in wars and other countries' business. How is that doing what he's saying?
No, I disagree. I think Will's right. There's a sense of a northern star with Donald Trump. You get a sense. And I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he's doing, let me just say. But what I like about him is I kind of get a sense exactly where he's going to go. Where Starmer's going to keep flip-flopping, and that's what I don't like. Especially someone in the left, like a floating voter. I think, can I trust that?
Talking of northern stars, Angela Rayner seems to be smooth. Yeah, very smooth. Learned from the best. So, do you think she's gunning for the top job, Benjamin?
Of course she is.
Of course she is.
Well, do you know what? I think there's a bit of sexism in being annoyed at that, right?
I'm not annoyed by it. No one's annoyed by it. No one's annoyed. I'm asking you whether she's after his job.
Where did that come from?
I think she... Yeah.
Nice try, Benjamin. Nice try.
I don't know if she's... Well, I think women taking the top job is a great thing, as Dr. Renee
last week, didn't
Dr. Renee, the Angela Rayner of this panel.
That's the nastiest thing anyone's ever said to you on this show.
Below the belt.
But I don't reckon she's gunning for it, because if she tried to go for it now, it wouldn't work.
OK.
But I reckon she wants the top.
Of course she does.
OK, right, we've got to wrap it up there. Still to come tonight, Dr. Renee, what have you got for us after the break?
I'm going to talk about how Labour cannot fix the NHS with their new plan.
OK, we've got lots going on in the Saturday 5 tonight, including some bombshell interviews from... What was that? OK. Oh, it's a little while. We'll see you after.
Oh, Ange is off.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. Of course, we love your views here on the Saturday 5, so go to gbnews.com/your say. And while you're there, two things to do. Get your questions in for Ask the 5, because at 8 o'clock, you get to ask us anything, and they are really great questions normally. They're really, like, our favourite part of the show. And then also you can vote on our poll, so go to gbnews.com/poll and vote for our Saturday scrap. You can have a look on there. Let's just quickly read out some of your messages so far. OK, I'm not going to read out this person's name because they've asked to remain anonymous. They have said, I would like to take the knee to Renee. Don't mention me live on there, though, in case my wife is watching. So, I'm sort of honouring your request. I haven't put your name out there. OK.
Wives all over the country and are going through computers.
Talking of taking the knee, Benjamin, did you not take the knee once on this show a long time ago?
I did, yes.
Yeah, who was it for? Gary Lineker?
No, I don't think it would have been Gary Lineker. I think it must have been BLM or something. Black Lives Matter.
Probably, yeah.
Would you still take the knee if that movement was revived tomorrow?
Well, I mean, at my age, it's getting harder and harder.
Very clever. All right, now it's time for our next debate. I think we know who's up next, don't we?
It's me.
Go ahead, Renee.
OK, so Wes Streeton said a year ago that he was going to reform the NHS and there would be no more money for the NHS until reform was enacted. And I cheered him on. What a great idea. Now, today, after he's poured another 50 billion into that black hole, the new brainwave coming from them is that any money flowing into a hospital will be increased or decreased depending on patient feedback. So a few weeks after a patient has a treatment, they'll get a telephone call to ask them whether or not they were happy. If they weren't happy, the hospital will lose 10% of the fee for that treatment. Sound like a good idea? It's lunacy. Let me explain why. Firstly, not all hospitals are equal. Some hospitals are in areas where people are much poorer. When you're poorer, you're sicker, where you're more densely packed. The hospital, therefore, has much more strain on it than a lovely, leafy hospital. When there's more strain on a hospital, waiting lists are longer and patients are unhappier. They will take their vengeance. Doctors and nurses' pay is set in stone. So when you denude a hospital of 10% of its finances, the doctors and nurses don't get any less money, the patients do. There is no link to elderly care. 13,000 people sit in hospital beds as this show goes out who don't need to be there, but they do need to be in the community receiving care. There's no money for care. So if you're a hospital in an area where there are more elderly people, you've got more of those patients, you can't get people through the hospital. You'll be punished. And more scarily, they're going to start with maternity. Already one of the most dangerous things a woman does, even in the Western world, and we're pretty bad at it in some places. We're now going to gamble with the lives of women and babies by taking money away if people complain. I've never heard such a ridiculous plan for healthcare from any government. This is school playground politics designed to avoid tackling the actual elephant in the room. The root and branch reform to systemic failures in the NHS. By all means, use patient feedback to find out where those failures are and then go in and tackle it. Don't denude them of money. Honestly, Labour, I wouldn't trust you to handle my 6-year-old diary, and it's not that complex.
Thanks, Renee. Spot on. You know, something I find really interesting is Labour always talk about how good they are at solving NHS problems, right? And on so far, compared to the last two governments, the Sunak government and the Johnson government, they actually haven't achieved anywhere close to the appointment increase. I think they've done 2.something%, and Sunak had done 7%.
Well, they're also massaging those figures, so they're putting more cheaper PAs and physios in and then calling those doctor appointments when they're not. The thing is, they're talking to managers within the NHS. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
Right.
They need to step away and talk to doctors not close to the centre who will tell them exactly what's wrong.
Benjamin, one of the things I will praise the government for is getting rid of NHS England. I think cutting this bureaucratic nonsense is very good for the country, but you know, it seems to me that Wes Streeting was on quite a bit of a roll, but he's taken a bit of a backseat now. Is he maybe planning a leadership bid or something?
No, I don't think so, although I'm afraid I wasn't watching the show last week because I was with the Health Secretary at the time.
Oh, what were you doing? Plotting?
He was
plotting.
He did have one night off. But what I would say is that I think this is a really interesting idea, because surely one of the problems that you get in the public sector in general is a sort of stagnation where there isn't the kind of market pressures for things to change, for bosses to be held accountable. And so is it not the case that if such a drastic consequence comes of poor outcomes, then it changes the motivations of those in charge? Right now, basically keeping everything the same keeps them in their top jobs. Won't this change that? Because it's a real motivating factor.
Because you can't
to get a grip.
You can't change their patient cohort.
Yeah.
So you can't change the pressures on them, but you can change those managers, and that's where they should be looking.
I do like how lefties pull out market forces when it suits them.
I'm a Blairite, Will.
Yeah. More's the shame. But the thing is, Benjamin, I actually have a great deal of sympathy for what you've just said. My problem with the surveys they pull out, having done a lot of my business career in customer experience strategy, is it's so easy to game these surveys, the end of calls. You have the peer pressure that comes on that says, oh, you know, please give us, you know, a 10 out of 10, and if you don't give us a 10 out of 10, let's see what we can do to get you over the line. So that I actually think the theory makes a lot of sense. In practice, I think there is a lot of challenges around it.
Troy, do you think the doctors should be able to rate patients in return?
Yeah, they probably should. Can you imagine? I mean, Dr. Elling would know. But I like that kind of sense of feedback, you know. I like the fact that we can say...
fine.
Yeah, but it should also... It'd be nice to link it to performance. But you're right, if we can get rid of that bureaucracy out of the way, then maybe better. But it's nice to link it to performance. Because if you're underperforming,
my big
you
worry...
get penalised a bit for it.
Yeah, and I think my big worry here, though, is that I think Renee's right. What you end up is a race to the bottom. And basically, doctors are only giving patients what they ask for because they're so worried about getting low stars and then lower pay as a result of that. You know, but we're not like America where you walk. It's like a tipping system now, isn't it?
I mean, also, you know, doctors aren't there to give you good news.
No,
right?
exactly.
So if they tell you you've got some terrible condition, then are you going to rate them badly because you didn't want to have something awful?
You know what? If you tell a patient that they're obese, they will rate you down.
I think, though, it's going to be how you say it. I think having spent half my life in and out of hospital, it's the bedside manner that drives me mad. It's the way they speak to you. That's what needs to be changed.
That's not about why the NHS is failing. It's not about bedside
No, it's
manner.
too much bureaucracy, isn't it?
I've worked in practices where no one speaks English.
Okay.
That's a very hard practice for a doctor to work in and get a good rating.
Lots of comments about that, the translation stuff, by the way. We'll get into that another time. We've got another big topic coming up next. Trey, what have you got for us?
So I'm going to be speaking about Labour's plans for landlords. I think it's an absolute disaster.
OK, I'm sure Benjamin's rearing to go on this one. You're with us Saturday 5 Live on GBNews. Don't go anywhere.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're heading further afield for a holiday over the next few days, windy in Greece, but widespread sunshine for much of the Mediterranean, and I suspect increasingly hot in many places. We've got a keen breeze for Madeira and the Canaries, nothing unusual for the time of year. The heat continues to build through Spain, Portugal, France and Italy. Temperatures high 30s and in some places low or even mid 40s. Very breezy through Greece, but staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So the temperatures are going to continue to rise over the next couple of days, but it isn't going to be that warm for all of us. There is still some rain around. All thanks to this weather front that's sitting across the central swathe of the UK, going to continue to bring some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle over the next couple of days. But we do have high pressure down to the south. Where we see that weather front across northern parts of England, there is going to be some patchy rain and drizzle to end the day on Saturday, perhaps sinking southwards a little into parts of Wales, maybe even southwest England too, seeing some low cloud mist and murk into the early hours of Sunday. But elsewhere, a dry night to come, plenty of clear spells on offer. But despite those clear spells, it is going to be staying really quite mild. Across the south, temperatures only dropping into the high teens, a little fresher further north, but likely still staying in the double figures here. So that does mean a very mild start to the day on Sunday. Across parts of Wales, southwest England, we could see a little bit of low cloud over any high ground, some patchy rain and drizzle in places. But elsewhere across England, generally a dry, bright start to the day. A similar start across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland too. Plenty of early morning sunshine on offer. Maybe one or two isolated showers just across the Northern Isles of Scotland. But for most of us, a dry and bright and pleasant start to the day on a Sunday morning, albeit quite a mild start too. That rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, perhaps southwest England, does continue as we head towards the afternoon. Perhaps some rain just arriving across parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland too. But for most of us, a dry, bright and sunny day and a really quite warm day too, particularly across the southeast. Again, temperatures around 29, 30, perhaps even 31 degrees, and even across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, temperatures into the low 20s. That rain pushes northwards across parts of Scotland, but otherwise a dry night for most places to come on Sunday night, but another really quite mild night too. And that sets us up for the peak in those temperatures on Monday or Tuesday, where we could see highs of 34, perhaps even 35 degrees across the southeast, with plenty more sunshine to come.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. We loved hearing your views. gbnews.com/yoursay. I'm going to read some of them out now. Evan Slater says, Renee, perfect as always. It's gold for us here on the show. We love Dr. Renee. We did have a little incident during the break, didn't we, Dr. Renee?
We did. We had a bra.
We had a bra incident, this show would rate extremely highly if we said what happened during the breaks.
I thought you were going to say something else there, but...
Oh, God. Saturday 5 only fans launching that. Alan subscription. Alan here says, Alex, they haven't got rid of NHS England. They've just retitled all their jobs. That wouldn't surprise me.
Alan is absolutely right. And I tell you, in 2 years' time, there'll be no savings from that.
Yeah, well, we'll find out about that, won't we? Druss the Legend says, Renee, speaking a great deal of common sense as usual, especially enjoyed the repeated use of the word denuded. Oh, my. Oh, still, it's very raw. You're not very raw. Maybe it's the heat.
Word of the day.
Maybe the heat. Yeah, the heat at home. Everyone's very raunchy tonight. OK. Well, let's crack on with our next debate. And no need for introductions, because I believe it's you, Trey.
Yep, it is indeed. So, I want to talk about Labour's plans for us landlords. So my parents arrived in this country in 1961 and settled in Notting Hill. Now, for those who don't know, back then, Notting Hill was notorious, overcrowded, run down and full of immigrants, like my family, and ruled by some horrendous landlords. People like Peter Ratchman, the notorious slumlord of Notting Hill. A man so ruthless, his method of terrorising innocent tenants at that time was spoken about in Parliament, and rightly so. Laws changed in order to protect tenants from exploitation. But here's the thing. The pendulum swung, and for a while, it found balance, protecting both landlords and tenants. Unfortunately, it's swinging again, and under Labour's new proposals, it's swinging so far that good landlords, like myself, like my parents, like thousands of landlords around the country, are being penalised. Policies like mandatory acceptance of pets, ever tighter renters' rights, and constant regulatory burdens might sound noble, but they're disincentivising landlords from staying in the market. And here's what happens if landlords start to sell up. Rents go up, housing choices go down, and tenants are left either with some landlords who ignore the rules or sky-high prices because of the risks. I'm all for protecting renters, but they're making it so much harder to be an entrepreneur in this country. There's only so much housing to go around. Penalising good landlords doesn't help tenants. It just pushes everyone out of that market, and it helps no one.
Yeah, Trey, I'm a private renter, so I've never had a council home, I've never been a landlord myself. So I've experienced good landlords and bad landlords, and the good landlords are always people you want to stay renting with, and you're like, right, I really want to stick with that, because there's so many bad ones now. And also, there's so many landlords that are not even living in the country. Yep. They're abroad. They've probably got massive property portfolios. They just palm it off to a property management company who also don't really care about them.
True.
And so, I sympathise with that, because I think the less private landlords we have and the less housing we have, the more those millionaires from abroad are going to suck up all that housing and be bad landlords. I'd rather my landlords are from this country.
I'll tell you who is going to suck up all the housing, and they already are doing it, is the banks. Lloyds has given itself a target and has already reached 25% of the landlord market. Yeah. So that's who's going to own it, big business. I was a really good landlord. I even took my 5-year tenants' rents down each year because they fell on hard times. Then, unfortunately, they parted and left. Then I got a bad tenant who didn't pay his rent, smashed up my flat, and I had to take him to court. It took me 20 months to get him out without any rent. And that was going... He'd never turned up at court. He didn't defend it. So that's how long the process takes. After that experience and watching this Labour government, I sold my flat. And that's what's happening.
That's the problem.
Will, do you think this is the history of the Conservative Party? Basically, this is their record in over the last 14 years. They didn't build any new homes. It was pretty abysmal. Someone like Robert Jenrick, who obviously is on there quite a lot with his new portfolio, but it was housing minister for a long period of time. Didn't get anything done. Yeah. Michael Gove, very protectionist. Are the Tories to blame really for this?
Yeah, all of that is entirely fair. But you mentioned Robert Jenrick, and Robert Jenrick injected himself into this conversation this week, where he did say the right thing. And what he basically said was these sorts of interventionist policies policies are not the answer when it comes to housing supply. The answer is basic supply and demand. And you know what the big issue is when it comes to demand? It is the influx of immigration over the last 20 years. Now, before Benjamin takes the low-hanging fruit and says, Will, oh my God, you're a migrant. It's like, yes, that doesn't mean we don't cut immigration entirely. It means we stop getting hundreds and thousands of people from Somalia and Eritrea who are not actually integrating into this country, and you have a smaller immigrant take, and guess what? That will reduce housing supply.
Well, look, I live in Clapham, so I'm surrounded by migrants like you. Australians are everywhere. It's a miracle I managed to get a flat.
It's true.
I'm afraid I'm not going to lose sleep over Dr. Renee selling a second property, probably for a considerable profit on what you bought it for, if it's in London. Because, you know what? Landlords obviously are essential in many ways, but so often they don't care about the tenants. They don't give properties in an acceptable standard. And because the market is such a mess, it's not really a market at all, you get situations where people are paying a fortune for poor quality housing, and when they try and raise the complaint, well, you describe an awful situation. The truth is, if a tenant raises a complaint, the chances and the costs and the court process of getting that landlord to own up to follow the law is so punitive, it's basically impossible. And that's a ridiculous situation. It's practically Dickensian how people live these days.
This is not going to solve it.
No, and you know what? Do you know the ones that really bother me? The landlords that are giving their houses up to the government, to Serco, to give them to the illegal migrants, while there are people in this country who can barely afford to get housing and they're British citizens. That's what really winds me up. But unfortunately, we've got to wrap this segment up because Big Willie Kingston, our favourite immigrant, he loves a bit of napalm in the mornings, he's next.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, if I had to pick the most malign force in this government, I wouldn't pick the buffoonery of Lammy or the incompetence of Reeves or even the shallow emptiness of Keir Starmer. I would pick the treachery of the Attorney-General, Lord Hermer. Why? Because he has built a career by tearing down the UK. He did it during an obviously activist legal career in which he defended some of this country's greatest enemies, from Gerry Adams to Al-Qaeda operatives. He did it during the Chagos surrender, and he did it most recently this week when he responded to legitimate criticisms of two-tier justice in this country by calling them frankly disgusting. And I guess by inference, the people who hold those views, frankly disgusting as well. It's the type of contempt that only the Islington liberal elite can muster. Ladies and gentlemen, this is once again disgusting in and of itself, because two-tier justice is obvious to anyone with a set of eyes. And there are countless examples, from Lucy Connolly to the grooming gangs to the way that pro-Israel protesters are treated in comparison to pro-Palestine protesters on the streets of London. But do you know why he can't acknowledge this? He can't acknowledge this because two-tier justice is the wall around his crumbling worldview. It is a worldview that prioritises multiculturalism over patriotism. It is a worldview that prioritises international human rights law over the rights of British citizens. It is a worldview that prioritises elite consensus over common sense. I have learnt to tolerate political incompetence, but I cannot tolerate someone who so obviously hates his own country and the values and the history upon which it was built.
Benjamin.
I mean, I think it's really dangerous to start talking about people hating their country because they take a different view of it. I'm afraid I think hating this country is what people who want to undermine the law and exploit it do. He's keeping law and order. He's keeping the rule of law, which is the definition of loving the country. And frankly, we don't have two-tier justice. When those rioters got severe sentences, it wasn't because of the nature of what they were doing. It's because they were doing a riot that was inflammatory, that was spreading across the country, and that was dangerous by the fact that so many more people were going to go out in their town centres. That's why it had to be nipped in the bud. I'm sorry, but I dare say that if we were to roll back the clocks to when there'd been elements of Black Lives Matter that went across the line and became violent rather than reasonable, I bet you wouldn't have taken the same view in reverse. That's the opposite of two-tier justice.
That's the perfect example of how there is two-tier justice in this country. In fact, there were several instances of violence in those protests, and they were not dealt with because the police feared they'd be called racist and because the judiciary have been so ideologically captured. I couldn't think of a better example, apart from perhaps the grooming gangs.
Well, do you know what it was for me as well? I think when people look at two-tier justice, they look at things like paedophiles getting lesser sentences than someone like Lucy Connolly, who's been locked up for hurty words.
But hang on, That's the fact that the law of the land is written with those boundaries of what they can be convicted.
Absolutely right, absolutely. But I think that's an example.
Wasn't a Labour government.
I totally hold the Tories in contempt for this as well. But I think when people look at things like two-tier justice, they go, well, how on earth have we allowed paedophiles to get less time in prison than someone who's put something on social media that they perhaps regret?
But if that is the law, I agree, that's the law. However, let's go back to Lucy Connolly. She has not been allowed visitation rights with her 12-year-old daughter, where every other prisoner in her position would be. She's not been allowed early release. She went to appeal. And yet, Labour, because the prisons are full, have been letting out people domestic violence offenders, who re-offended within days. But Lucy Connolly is still a threat to society, Benjamin?
I mean, look, I think that short sentences probably aren't worth them at all. People that commit minor crimes don't tend to need to go into prison. They tend to be radicalised by going in there. So I don't disagree with releasing some of those people. I think Lucy Connolly's 31-month sentence is probably too harsh, probably not good use of resource. But the fact is, what she said was appalling, and what happened in those riots was a threat to our national security and to our safety.
Do you think what she said is more appalling than what this
Unfortunately, I've got to wrap it up. I'm sorry. This is such a good debate. Actually, we have the best debate. On Saturday 5, don't we? I know. But I've got to keep some law and order as we're talking about it here on the show. But now it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and your chance to win £54,321 or 54321, our biggest cash prize to date. All of that tax-free cash could be yours, and here's how you can get it.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. Wouldn't it be lovely to have that money just for the end of the summer? That'd be
spot on.
Fantastic.
I've just entered. No,
Yeah.
I haven't been.
You can't win. If you win, it'll be a stitch-up.
Yeah.
Still to come tonight, we've got the big Saturday scrap. Please don't stop voting, gbnews.com/poll. But, Benjamin, what have you got for us next?
Well, after Dr. Renee lectured me there, it's time to talk about Karens. Whether it's a reasonable term to use words like Karen and gammon, or whether it should be illegal.
OK, you're with the Saturday. It's going to be a good one. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. Excuse me. Well, given this, I don't know what, we haven't even been drinking yet. We start drinking at 8, so that's going to get really interesting. Given he's not been here for a while, I'm going to hand it straight over to the returning man himself, Benjamin Butterworth.
Well, I'm talking about Karens. Yep, it's a term you've probably heard when you watch viral videos of middle-aged women telling Starbucks baristas off, or people screaming at other people's driving or parking. It's one of those terms that's become associated with entitled, middle-aged white women who think they run the world. So we call them a Karen. But now a court has ruled that this could be borderline, quote-unquote, borderline sexist, racist and ageist. So is it equivalent to terms like gammon, which is what I'd call all of you that vote for reform? Sort of pale, slightly racist old white people. Now, the question is whether it's acceptable to say this, or is this, in fact, GB News' favourite thing, freedom of speech?
Right, okay.
Dr. Renee.
No, hang on a second, because you are going to get in big trouble.
There's such a great history of people calling other people racist on
your say is in meltdown mode. You know what I say to this, Benjamin? It's the same argument people make about coconut, isn't it? Because it's all about skin. Gammon, particularly, it's about skin colour, isn't it? It's about...
Do you want to describe what that...
Well, I probably look a little bit like it at the moment, don't I? I go back for food.
I've never heard that before, by the way.
You never heard
it? Gammon.
Gammon. Yes.
Yeah.
So Benjamin, can you explain what gammon is?
Well, gammon, so basically it comes from the idea that a lot of these people sort of have reddy, whitey skin, and so they say they look like a gammon, a similar colour, and it's used basically as a derogatory term for older white men that maybe are socially conservative, vote reform, that kind of attitude, but the equivalent is Karen for middle-aged white women that tell everyone else what to do.
Will, you're a libertarian. Do you think we should be demonising this? Do you think it's a form of racism?
No, I don't think so, really. I think I'm in two minds in that if you're going to play the identity politics game, you've got to be prepared for when it goes for the white, black, whatever.
Yep. Right.
At the same time, the right aren't snowflakes like the left, so I don't...
Oh, snowflakes? Is that what you're calling me?
Racist.
Sure, yeah.
Dr. Renee?
Oh, it's ridiculous. But I agree with Will that if you want to play all of the other cards, the transphobic, the homophobic, then, yeah, Karen's bad too.
Okay.
You're Karen-phobic.
Okay, true.
I think we had it last week, isn't it, when people were equating fat people with racism, and I think it just makes a mockery of the word racism. When you think of the history of racism, or if someone was calling me the N-word, you know, that ended up with people getting lynched, etc. Karen's different, and often Karens use their actual privileges, whether it's an age privilege, whether it's a class privilege often, or whether it's a colour privilege, to actually demonise people who are sort of lower down the pecking order. Okay. I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Do you know what? I think all of this is just rubbish identity politics.
It is.
It's the stuff
boring.
that people despise. It's just words thrown around to make people angry, really. Yeah. It's bait, isn't it? Anyway, loads more to come on the Saturday 5, including the big part of the show, the Saturday Scrap. What do you want to see us debate? We'll also cross live to Venice, where locals are protesting over Jeff Bezos' £1 billion wedding, I think it's something like that. And we're going to find out why Foreign Secretary David Lammy is being accused of hypocrisy. Don't go anywhere.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been a very warm day for many of us today, and that heat continues to build over the next couple of days, particularly across the southeast, all thanks to an area of high pressure that's building from the south of the UK, pushing its way north and eastwards over the next couple of days. We do still have this weather front across northern areas, though. That will continue to bring some cloud and rain as we head through the rest of Saturday evening, mainly across northwestern parts of England, perhaps into northern parts of Wales, southwest England too. But elsewhere, generally a dry night to come, plenty of clear spells into the early hours of Sunday morning, and a very mild night to come too. Temperatures in the south not dropping below the high teens for many places. A little fresher further north, but still staying well into the double figures for most places. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday, perhaps still quite a cloudy start across parts of Wales, southwest England. We could continue to see some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle. Elsewhere in England, though, generally a dry and bright start to the morning, and a similar picture too across parts of Northern Ireland. Scotland generally seeing some early sunshine as well, plenty of clear and blue skies through the morning. One or two isolated showers across the very far northeast, but elsewhere staying dry to start on Sunday. That cloud does continue across parts of Wales, southwest England as we head through the afternoon. Maybe one or two isolated showers just feeding into Northern Ireland, and some longer spells of rain into northwest Scotland too. But elsewhere, generally staying dry, plenty of sunshine on offer as we head through Sunday afternoon. And again, feeling really warm across the southeast, highs of 29, 30, potentially 31 degrees, and even across parts of Scotland into the low 20s. A very mild start to the day on Monday, potentially a little warmer start on Monday compared to Sunday. The northwest does continue to see some outbreaks of potentially quite heavy rain feeding in from the northwest, but for much of England and Wales, a dry and bright afternoon to come. And the temperatures likely peaking on Monday or Tuesday, around 34, potentially 35 degrees, but then feeling fresher by the middle of the week.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. I'm, of course, Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Trelo, and he's back, Benjamin Butterworth. Tonight on the show...
We'll be punching on in your chosen topic for the Saturday Scrap.
We'll be going live to Venice to see the protests against the big wedding.
And in Bunch of Five, we'll do quick fire rounds on the news this week.
And of course, we're going to have some great tantrums for you.
And a bombshell interview from the Arab Muslim who fled the Middle East, only to say that the West is getting just as bad.
It's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Yes, welcome to the Saturday 5. Still loads more chaos to come on the show tonight. Trust me, it's been a very, very busy hour. And of course, we love to hear your views as well. We could just go to gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the 5. No topics are off limits, and we're going to read them all out at 8 o'clock. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We have some brilliant questions from you guys this week. And we're just about to get to the Saturday Scrap in moments. So if you haven't voted yet, go to gbnews.com/poll and vote for the scrap you want us to debate. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday Night News with the brilliant Mark White.
Good evening. The main headlines from the GB News Centre. The Glastonbury Music Festival has been hit by fresh controversy after one of the acts was heard chanting death to the Israeli military. Punk duo Bob Vylan, the act performing directly before Irish language rap trio Kneecap, appeared to lead crowds in chants of Free Palestine and death to the IDF.
Free, free! Free, free! Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
Well, the BBC chose not to stream Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury after one of the band members was charged with a terror offence in May. A number of politicians, including the Prime Minister, had called for the Irish hip-hop group to be banned from the festival. It follows allegations that band member Liam Ohana displayed a flag in support of the proscribed terrorist group Hezbollah during a concert last year. In their Glastonbury set, the group led the crowd in an expletive-laden chant against Sir Keir Starmer. So breaking news, and 5 children have been taken to hospital after a tree fell in a park in Essex. All 3 emergency services were called to Chalkwell Park in Southend late this afternoon to reports of a number of casualties. An East of England Ambulance Service spokesperson said that 2 children were taken to Southend University Hospital with serious injuries. A further 3 children were transported to the same hospital with minor injuries. Economists are warning tax rises are likely in the autumn following the government's major U-turn on welfare reforms. The Prime Minister announced the concessions yesterday to try and avert a rebellion by more than 120 Labour backbenchers. The changes mean only new claimants will face stricter checks to decide their eligibility. The Prime Minister said fixing the welfare system is a moral imperative.
We cannot take away the safety net that vulnerable people rely on, and we won't. But we also can't let it become a snare for those who can and want to work. And everyone agrees that our welfare system is broken, failing people every day. A generation of young people written off for good, and the costs spiralling out of control. Fixing it is a moral imperative, but we need to do it in a Labour way.
Thousands of Iranians gathered in Tehran for a state funeral for the military commanders and scientists killed during the conflict with Israel. Coffins draped in the Iranian flag bearing portraits of those killed were carried through the city centre. The conflict ended with a ceasefire earlier this week after the US became directly involved by bombing key nuclear sites in Iran. Border Force has seized £100 million worth of cocaine at a UK port. The drugs were found under containers on a ship arriving into London Gateway Port from Panama. It's one of the largest cocaine hauls since records began. Meanwhile, the National Crime Agency is investigating after a major weapons and drug seizure in Dover. 20 firearms and rounds of ammunition were recovered, along with 180 kilograms of ketamine. OK, you're right up to date with the latest news. Now it's over to the gang who can never agree on anything. Could you imagine taking them out for dinner?
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Alex Armstrong and I can promise you're in for a very, very lively hour. Let's crack on with tonight's main event. And of course, you at home have been voting on what you want us to debate in the Saturday Scrap. And here were the options. Should we have a one-in, one-out deal with France on the migrant crisis? Should the NHS abide by what a woman is? Or should Parliament dumb down its language? Well, 33% of you voted for NHS abiding by what a woman is. 8% voted for Parliament dumbing down language, but a whopping 62% of you voted in favour of us talking about that one-in, one-out migrant plan. So, me and Benjamin are going to go head-to-head on this one. So let's crack on with tonight's main event. It's the rematch of the century. Here we go.
I'm into this.
Yes, we've both got strong views on Labour's plans to sign a one-in, one-out migrant deal with France to try and solve the crisis in the Channel. The deal would mean we'd send migrants to France within weeks of their arrival. In return, though, we'd take asylum seekers from France. Seconds out, it's round one. Benjamin, would you like to kick us off? What do you think of the new one-in, one-out deal that's being proposed?
Well, characteristically and predictably, it's another great idea from Keir Starmer. This is actually deeply practical. Lots of people don't want any refugees, but I'm afraid that's not one of the options on the table, and it wouldn't be a moral or a very British way to behave. And so what this does is it says that if you've got a family tie to the UK, if you've got a reasonable and legal claim, then we will take you in from France, but France will take back these people that have no link here, and most importantly, those are the ones we should be nervous of because we're not sure who they are, we're not sure if they might have malintentions. And so this is a great deal for Britain because we get the people we can track, we meet our international and moral obligations to help refugees, but we don't have the people that are most unpredictable.
You know, the thing is, Benjamin, is that the Prime Minister promised he'd smash the gangs. Time and time again, this was a manifesto pledge, and it's been pretty much blasted on the airwaves every month for the last year. And he's obviously failed that plan, hasn't he? He's been scrambling to try and find an offshore processing deal, and now he's resorted to this, a one-in, one-out. Well, actually, British people don't want a one-in, one-out. They want zero. They want zero more asylum seekers. They want zero more illegal migrants. And quite frankly, we've already seen the EU today. 7 member states have come and said, well, we've not heard about this deal. This is a brand new thing for us, and we don't think we're going to pass it because, of course, France can't do this unilaterally. They have to do it with consent of the European Union. Something, of course, which Keir Starmer would love, I'm sure, if we were to have more freedom of movement with them, which is kind of what he's proposing here, isn't it?
But doesn't that show what a good deal it is? Because when you've got Cyprus and Malta and these other EU countries being annoyed about it, why are they annoyed? Because they might have to take back more people and less shorn migrants that they don't really want to have. That shows just what a good deal Keir Starmer's been getting for Britain. And the fact is that you say you want zero refugees. Well, do you know what? You don't have to go far back in British history to see things that we're incredibly proud of, like taking in Jewish refugees during and after the Second World War. We celebrate that rightly. lightly. It's part of our history that we know was the right thing for the world. There are people like that helped forces in Afghanistan and risked their lives against the Taliban. We should take people like that. But the fact is, there are some people we don't know who they are, and so if we could take those reasonable people and send the others back, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yes, I think that we should start off by towing the boats back to France, and I think the British public might be a little bit more receptive to any other terrible deals Keir Starmer's going to do. I mean, the rest of the deals he's done for Britain have pretty much surrendered our sovereignty and cost us a fortune of billions of pounds at the cost to it, the tune to it. Quite frankly, British people want this crisis to end. They don't want another deal that's going to be squandered by France and ripped back out of our hands again. We just want the migrant crisis to end. We are sick to death of it. Our NHS is out of control. We've got waiting lists up to our eyeballs. People can't get housing. Benefits are spiralling. And quite frankly, people just want this to be over with.
Look, I've been advocating to send you to Rwanda for some years.
Oh, I bet you have. I bet you have. Right, let's bring in the rest of the panel, shall we?
This just shows a complete misreading of the British public, as Alex says. The net migration, forget whether it's coming across the Channel or coming in via Heathrow, is placing such a strain on all of our services, housing, schools, NHS, that we cannot cope. We need a moratorium, even if it's for 5 years. What this does is it takes a migrant who we could legitimately send back somewhere and actually guarantees someone who's going to stay. This is even worse.
But, Renee, can I also just point out how ludicrous the framing of this all is? Like, what Benjamin's effectively saying is that we're going to get those good refugees, the ones that read feminist literature and carry Union Jacks, and yet we're going to get rid of
Union
the very
flags.
Yes, righto, and get rid of the odd bad apple that just manages to slip through past the French defences. Why on earth would the French agree to that? Why are they going to take the terrorists back, but at the same time they're going to give up, those really nice refugees that are such great contributors to this country?
He has a point.
Trey, before we get back to Benjamin, I just want to hear what Trey makes of this.
Do you know, that's why I'm actually so anti-war, because on the one hand, some people are talking about this whole war in Iran's a good thing, which would have led to another flood, which is what happened after the Iraq war. I think you're right. It should be a moratorium, and it should just be like, nobody comes in. Why not treat it like you treat drugs? Because at the end of the day, these are criminal gangs operating these boats. I don't know why it's not treated like that. I think this whole French thing is a ludicrous idea, and I think, well, you're right. Why would they swap? What's in it for them?
I just think it's a fallacy. I think it's a fallacy that this government can do anything that they don't U-turn on within a matter of weeks, if not within the year they've been in government. I mean, I cannot fathom how badly this deal would go for us. And France would end up sending the worst people here. And quite frankly, as I've said time and time again, it's just totally out of touch with the tune of the country. Nigel Farage is surging in the polls. Keir Starmer can't decide whether he's pro-immigration, anti-immigration, whether the country's going to be full of strangers, whether it's not. They just cannot have. They don't have a succinct policy on this, Benjamin. You must see that.
But it's about divvying it up in a way that's more reasonable and more manageable. So the benefits of this...
But we're still getting the same amount of people.
Well, hang on. One of the big costs is people in migrant hotels and the legal and processing costs of people after they surprise us by turning up at Dover, right? So this takes out the problem of those people being sat in a hotel for an average of 18 months, and it takes out all the cost of dealing with their legal appeals because you've done it before they get here. That's a massive saving and a more practical way.
It doesn't take the pressure off of our maternity services, hospital services, schools, housing.
I don't think those men are turning up and giving birth, dare I say.
We have, in terms
of... Well, they are all men, after all, aren't they?
Health tourism, where women turn up here via Heathrow or another airport just to have their babies in the NHS, is a big problem. And this
I don't think those are the ones in the boats. Come off.
But I didn't say that. So what?
Even Benjamin admits there's no women in the boats.
So we're going to get the ones that are coming not in the boats. We are going to get the women.
Isn't the bigger question here, Trey, that most of these people coming, even the asylum seekers going to France, who have gone through multiple countries more than likely, they aren't really asylum seekers. No. Most of them, as we know now, we really kind of know this, a lot of them are just economic migrants looking for a new life.
A lot of them are, but you know what, some of them are actually coming because we speak English and it's easy and the rest of it. So I do have sympathy for why they're coming over. I don't like language that portrays them as some sort of...
It's harder because we speak English. They don't speak English.
No, but a lot of them do. They speak broken English. Most people around the world speak it. But I think what it it is. I think what you say, man, is the same thing. At some point, we have to say if there's too many coming in, most of them are economic migrants, then they're really playing the system. Look, that's why it needs to stop. I just don't like the language of it, but it needs to stop. We should treat it how we would treat if drugs were being brought in.
Yes,
Will?
Yes, very wet. Look, this is all a diversion.
Here we go. We shouldn't be nice.
This is all a diversion from the simple but difficult task that you need to do to stop the boats entirely. Get out of the ECHR, remove the incentives, put them in detention centres, make sure that if you say to them that if you get on a boat, you will never stay in the United Kingdom. That's what Australia did, and they solved the problem.
And don't give them legal aid. Don't give them out legal aid.
Well, we give them everything, don't we? We give them everything, free dental.
They get £40 a week. I really don't think that's life-changing.
But Benjamin, a lot of them, as we know now, are working. They're working for Uber Eats, the Deliveroos, potentially other companies. I'm not saying it's just those companies. There's potentially others as well. And we know they're making potentially thousands of pounds while being put up in free in hotels for free, 5-star.
But then,
and then they get at the end of it, they'll get a house and they'll get the right to work. And then haven't solved the problem. The problem's still perpetuating.
But hang on, isn't there an oddity to your argument, which is that actually, why give them all the free stuff when they want to come here, they want to work hard, they want to make money? Actually, I thought we wanted entrepreneurial, hard-working people to be the ones who come to Britain. These refugees would build Britain.
That's a bit of a
You couldn't even stop yourself.
That's a bit of a stretch. Listen, all it's going to do is suppress wages, won't it?
That is bait, all right?
Yeah.
Don't bite on it.
He doesn't even believe it.
No, he doesn't believe it. No, look at him.
He doesn't. Look at his face. Look at his face.
Frame him up.
He doesn't believe it.
Well, next time your hamburger turns up on time, you know who delivered it.
Can't even pronounce hamburger, half of them. All right, let's wrap this up, shall we? That's still to come tonight, by the way. We've got Triggered Tantrums. Take a look at this.
Hi! Can you tell me about your dog? This is Honey. He is a gay, gender-fluid, golden retriever Afghan hound mix.
That's just for you, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, Benjamin has received some rewards this week, actually. I need to try and sneak that into the show somehow. This week's Triggered Tantrums are coming up. But next, we're going to cross live to Italy, where protesters are targeting Amazon founder, the billionaire Jeff Bezos' £35 million wedding. I mean, what kind of a wedding would that buy you? Well, it buys you the whole of Venice. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
For working class families, what are the fundamentals that they are looking for? They're looking for good housing, they're looking for good schools, they're looking for good jobs that give them a fair day's wage for a fair day's graft, they're looking for a strong NHS, and they're looking for safe communities to live in. When you have all of those foundations in place, then it means that children, young people, they can flourish, they can do well alongside their parents and their grandparents. And I think if you look at what this Labour government has done, we're 10 months into a 5-year programme here, by the way, but in the first 10 months of this new Labour government, they have put major policy reforms in place across all 5 of those key foundations for working class families. And so I'm confident that we're starting to see some of it here in Basildon, where Basildon is starting to get better again. I'm confident that by the end of this Parliament, because of what the government is doing now, we will start to see some positive changes for working class families.
OK, Christo, what do you make of it?
I think that Bridget Phillipson makes a very fair point when she says that white working class families and those peoples are being left behind. But unfortunately, her actions as Education Secretary don't align with what I believe are these completely hollow words. So, for instance, we've seen white working class boys particularly, but now girls, falling behind in education for absolutely years. So why Bridget Phillipson would then bring in a policy that is seeing, by the latest figures, 13,000 private school pupils entering the state school system, why on earth she would bring in that kind of policy, whilst then having the audacity to say that she's worried about white working class pupils not doing so well, is beyond me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Don't forget to get in touch with us, gbnews.com/yoursay. Get your questions in for Ask the Five. They are brilliant every week, and we go through a roster of all of your questions. I collect them here on my laptop, so I know some of you are like, you're not reading my question out. I will. I'll get to it. But let's read some of them out now, actually. Grumpy Grandad, a star. I mean, an unseen star. He's like the secret...
Should get him on the show.
Yeah. Grumpy Grandad, do you want to come on? Do an Ask the Five for us. Come on, do it. Grumpy Grandad said, calling people Karens is just another way of describing a certain group of people. So the way things are today, they would say it's racist. I wish we could end all of this woke madness, then we can behave like normal people again. Hear, hear.
There's wisdom in that.
Susan Williams says, Benjamin has a great personality. Somewhere.
Under the table.
Graham is a little bit more praising of you, Benjamin. He says, this is acceptable, Benjamin. I think this was... We're talking about some of the migrant stuff. Oh, no, it's free speech related. Some think the right is not allowed is free speech. And may I say, since you came back from Israel, you are a changed man. Yeah. We're going to have to get rid of him now because he's becoming too right-wing, aren't we? Keep them coming. We love your messages on the Saturday 5. But... moving on. There are demonstrations this evening in Venice over Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' £35 million wedding to Lauren Sanchez.
Went a bit Trump there.
I did. Oh, very big, a huge wedding. Dozens of celebrities have been in the Italian city, but the wedding has been very controversial. One of the protests featured a mannequin of Bezos sat on a toilet with his trousers down and dollar notes around him. Well, let's cross to Venice and speak to Nick Pisa, senior global reporter at The Mail Online. Nick, thank you very much for joining us here on the Saturday 5. What's the mood in Venice tonight with this major wedding that just took place, just a few hours ago, less than 24 hours ago?
Yes, well, the protest has now come to an end. It finished about 20 or so minutes ago. There's about 700 people who had gathered for that demonstration. It began at the Santa Lucia railway station and then made its way about a mile or so to the Rialto Bridge. Originally, the plan was for it to continue to St Mark's Square, but instead the police said, no, that's as far as you can go. I can tell you that Jeff and Lauren's hotel was about 5 minutes a walk away, and I'm pretty sure they probably wouldn't have heard anything, although it was quite noisy. There was smoke. Red and blue smoke, and there were banners being held up. There was chanting, whistling. Some of that chanting was actually quite offensive towards Jeff and Lauren. I'm not sure if we can say some of the chants that were said in a family show, but there was some quite humorous placards. Actually, one of them, which I found quite funny, was the lagoon in Venice has been invaded by plastic. The women need to leave and redo their chests. I'll leave that to your imagination.
I can only imagine, Nick. So I'm getting, these protests, of course, were targeted at Bezos, essentially buying up parts of Venice for his wedding. How sort of severe were these protests? Did they manage? Was there any trouble? Was it quite peaceful, or is this sort of this larger movement against billionaires? We're seeing a lot of the left and around the world sort of rallying away from these billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Was there any violence at all? Was this quite peaceful?
No, it was quite peaceful. There must have been about 20 or so riot police at the front of that cortege and a similar number at the back. And they did close off certain side streets because sometimes, I've been covering many protests in Italy in the past, and sometimes the tactic of these groups is to dive off down a side street and try and cause chaos and pandemonium elsewhere. But no, it was very well organised, very well behaved. They regrouped to the Piazza San Giacomo, which, as I say, is just by the Rialto Bridge to hear speeches. And they were all basically saying that Venice had been held hostage for 3 days, they're saying, by Bezos and his entourage of about 200 or so guests. I mean, I was talking to colleagues this morning, just wondering to myself, Jeff Bezos, fine, you're a billionaire, still free, or whatever to do with your money, but I mean, does he really know Leonardo DiCaprio that well? Does he really know Orlando Bloom that well? You know, the Kardashians, are these people that are on his WhatsApp group that he could say, look, I need a favour, guys? I don't know, it just feels rather odd to me, Alex.
Yeah, very, very weird. I'm going to bring in my panel now, if you don't mind, Nick. Dr. Renee would like to ask you a question.
Hi, Nick. Hello. I can't help thinking that a man has more money than he can ever use, handled this very badly. If this had been the Rockefellers, they would have opened a school for disadvantaged children and renamed it. They would have given every resident, I think there's 250,000 people in Venice, you know, a gift or, you know, whatever. I think if he'd have spent a similar amount to his wedding on Venice itself, would people have been more happy to receive it?
Well, we should give him credit. He has donated €3 million to local projects. Sorry, I didn't see. Yeah, €3 million to local projects involving environmental issues here in Venice. Because as we know, Venice is an endangered city. It's built on tiny islands in this lagoon, which are sinking, and there's always that danger of flooding. So there are these research projects going. We should also say that he asked for no gifts and he asked for donations instead from his guests. But the thing that strikes me is that, you know, he's actually, and we discovered this a few days ago, and I rang the town hall and said, look, how does an expat go about getting married here? And the town hall said to me, well, he's not getting married here. There's no licence being applied for. There is no official carrying out any ceremony, be it religious or civil. So the whole 3-day extravaganza was just an excuse for a big party, really, because we know that they actually got married in the United States about a month ago.
Nick, I imagine that amongst that celebrity group there are several avid environmentalists there. I'm assuming they all shared seats in economy on their way. There's no private jets to be found in Venice, were there?
Well, do you know, that's the other thing that is... Yeah, there was about 80 or 90 private jets, apparently, that flew into Venice airport from all over the world. And, you know, those 80 or 90 private jets are all going to be leaving in the next, day or so, really. Everyone's going to head back to wherever it is that they came from. Yeah, I mean, the plan was for them to actually bring their yachts in as well, but that went out the window. They decided they were far too big to bring into the lagoon area of Venice as well.
Benjamin, Benjamin Butterworth here. He's he's basically our global reporter because he flies all over the world, despite being very pro-net zero. Benjamin, have you got anything you'd like to ask?
I'm out of the country as much as Keir Starmer. I think the whole thing is totally grotesque. I mean, she doesn't even look nice. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. It's absolutely hideous. You know, it's so over the top. But what do people that are visiting think? Because Venice is really cramped, really quite small. What are regulars that are holidaying there thinking about parts of the city they've paid to visit being cut off?
Did he hear me? Nick, can you hear us?
Sorry, it's really busy here now on the bridge, and there's a big group of tourists decided to come and watch. You couldn't just repeat the question again?
Yes, of course.
Well, you kind of answered it inadvertently. But what do the tourists that have paid for their summer holiday to visit Venice, how do they feel about the chaos, part of the city being in protests, part of the city being cut off that they've paid to visit?
Well, you know, it's actually quite funny because when we were on the protest, obviously the police were clearing the streets and blowing their whistles and making way, trying to make a path for that 700 people to walk past. And one of them did stop me and say, yeah, the bride and couple the bride and groom coming this way. And I said, no, it's actually a protest against Jeff and Lauren's wedding. I mean, to be honest with you, I doubt many tourists actually know what is going on. It's the locals who are really infuriated because the other day when the wedding, the first event was taking place in the Madonna dell'Orto church, they closed off all the side streets and they were only letting residents or guests of hotels staying there. And there was one gentleman who tried to get past and they just wouldn't let him through because he didn't have his ID with him, and he was just furious, and he was actually kicking off and making quite a fuss at the fact and blaming the wedding party for blocking him off. And in fact, the protesters, the organisers were saying that because they were, being held up and they were being kept in their houses and not allowed to return to their houses because the streets were being blocked off.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight in a very, very busy Venice. It's Nick Peter there, senior global reporter at The Mail Online. Thank you, Nick. Right, Trey, I haven't heard from you yet, so I want to bring you in on this. Do you think, Benjamin said it was grotesque, not to paraphrase you too much, because you're sat right there, but it's grotesque, and I'm just going to maybe summarise it, and we'll see what he said about the women. But do you think this sort of stuff is grotesque?
No, not necessarily. What he's doing is in line with his wealth, isn't it? It's as simple there's nothing wrong with it. And I actually like the fact that a billionaire like him's getting married again, because the sort of red pill brigade guys will say, protect your money, don't ever marry again, she's going to take your money.
Well, there might be a prenup.
There probably is a prenup, but I love the message that, you know, the wealthiest men in the world tend to get married. I think it's quite a healthy thing. I love the fact he's getting married. I think it's a bit below the belt saying that it's grotesque. It is a good thing,
though. Like, they've got all the money in the world, and it still looks tacky as hell. It proves that money can't buy class.
So what?
Tacky is a personal thing.
It's a
you
personal
might find
thing.
it tacky, other people didn't. However, I'm going to say this. I would normally say that I don't care how someone spends their money. It's entirely up to them. However, I do care about this because he doesn't pay the tax in the countries his business operates that he should. And that's what gets me. There's a wedding going on there for 35 million, and I think Amazon pay less tax than me in this country.
So you know what? I mean, I actually, believe it or not, for the second time tonight, I'm going to agree with Benjamin a little bit. Maybe not on all of his comments, but particularly on the fact that I don't think billionaires should be able to buy up plots of cities to host their private weddings in. If we had this in London, let's just say it was somewhere beautiful in London, maybe even the Mall, and a famous couple, billionaires, bought up the whole area, maybe like St James's Park or something else, for their private wedding. I think as a London, I'd be pretty disgusted with that.
But where do you draw the line with that, though? If a normal person hires a marquee in a space, why can't they hire what they can afford to a certain extent?
I mean, I think, if I remember rightly, the arch at the bottom of the Mall is becoming a very expensive hotel.
Correct.
So soon you might be able to buy the bottom of the Mall for your wedding and pretend that you're like Princess Catherine or something.
Soon it'll have migrants in it, Benjamin.
I think Will would like to pretend he's Meghan Markle or whatever. Right? Did you have a little wedding down there, Will?
Love Meghan. Renee, are you honestly trying to tell me that isn't tacky? When you see a billionaire going around, I think, you know, sure, it is technically subjective, but this is about as objective as you can get when it comes to tacky. This is obviously tacky.
And what's grim is that, you know, happy wedding day to her and all, but she's been belated, but she's been given the cover of Vogue magazine, so, you know...
Which they've probably paid for.
Well, by the back door, by the sense of how powerful they are, they want the relationship. So it's no wonder that Anna Wintour has quit as editor of Vogue. And I just find it grim because, you know, she's not there for her... I mean, she's a journalist, I'm sure she's a clever person, but she's not there for her talent, she's not there for an extraordinary creative experience. They're just there because they've got absolutely loads of money and they can do what they like. And I think that's a grim reflection of our culture.
Let you get away with this. There have been trans women on Vogue for no talent, no reason, apart from the fact that they've suddenly decided that their delusion should be shared with the world.
And they still look better than Lauren Sanchez.
Oh, you are on form today.
All right. Well, on that note, if you'd like to... You probably can't buy yourself Venice for this, but it is time for our Great British giveaway. It's your chance to win £54,000.
Buy Newham.
Yes. I didn't really... Yes, I didn't listen to what she was saying. £54,321. Our biggest cash prize to date, Newham not included. All of that tax-free cash could be yours.
Come on, Hayley.
Here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, this week's Triggered Tantrums are on the way. And no, they're not from Venice this time, but they might be from next week. But next, it's the bunch of 5. Stand by for an extraordinary claim from Oscar winner Dame Emma Thompson. Believe me, you will not want to miss that one. You're at the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're heading further afield for a holiday over the next few days, windy in Greece, but widespread sunshine for much of the Mediterranean, and I suspect increasingly hot in many places. We've got a keen breeze for Madeira and the Canaries, nothing unusual for the time of year. The heat continues to build through Spain, Portugal, France and Italy. Temperatures high 30s and in some places low or even mid 40s. Very breezy through Greece, but staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been a very warm day for many of us today, and that heat continues to build over the next couple of days, particularly across the southeast, all thanks to an area of high pressure that's building from the south of the UK, pushing its way north and eastwards over the next couple of days. We do still have this weather front across northern areas though. That will continue to bring some cloud and rain as we head through the rest of Saturday evening, mainly across northwestern parts of England, perhaps into northern parts of Wales, southwest England too. But elsewhere, generally a dry night to come, plenty of clear spells into the early hours of Sunday morning, and a very mild night to come too. Temperatures in the south not dropping below the high teens for many places. A little fresher further north, but still staying well into the double figures for most places. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday, perhaps still quite a cloudy start across parts of Wales, southwest England. We could continue to see some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle. Elsewhere in England though, generally a dry and bright start to the morning, and a similar picture too across parts of Northern Ireland. Scotland generally seeing some early sunshine as well, plenty of clear and blue skies through the morning. One or two isolated showers across the very far northeast, but elsewhere staying dry to start on Sunday. That cloud does continue across parts of Wales, southwest England as we head through the afternoon. Maybe one or two isolated showers just feeding into Northern Ireland, and some longer spells of rain into northwest Scotland too. But elsewhere, generally staying dry, plenty of sunshine on offer as we head through Sunday afternoon. And again, feeling really warm across the southeast, highs of 29, 30, potentially 31 degrees, and even across parts of Scotland into the low 20s. A very mild start to the day on Monday, potentially a little warmer start on Monday compared to Sunday. The northwest does continue to see some outbreaks of potentially quite heavy rain feeding in from the northwest, but for much of England and Wales, a dry and bright afternoon to come. And the temperatures likely peaking on Monday or Tuesday, around 34, potentially 35 degrees, but then feeling fresher by the middle of the week.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. As you know, gbnews.com/yoursay is where you can talk to me and the panel. Let's see what you have been writing in very quick. Let's have a look here. Graham said... Oh, no, we've already read that one out. Professional widow. When migrants make any money, they send it home. Yep. It doesn't go to the British economy. I think that's true.
Well, it is entrepreneurial.
Well, that's true. It's not very good for Britain. Grumpy Grandad, what do we have here? Another one. BLM, every one of those police cases where this is an older topic we spoke about earlier in the show, where people are not doing as the police instructed them to do. Had they behaved, they would all be alive today. interesting stuff there.
You're going to be accused of grumpy granddad favouritism again.
I know.
That literally took down Darren Grimes' career.
Yeah, he did, yeah. MS says the foreign landlords will snatch up the houses, turn them into HMOs, which is multiple, I think it meant MHOs, and then fill them with illegals and charge the council taxpayers a fortune. That is happening, yes. And Charlotte here says, thank God I am now a homo. This is quite a long one, so I'm going to read it out. I have such bad memories of being a tenant that it gives me PTSD. I spent a long time in the living nightmare of being a private tenant and honestly wanted to die. Quite strong words here. I wanted a council place but couldn't get one. One landlord put my life in danger when he tried to fix the cooker, but it wasn't qualified to do so. I could have been electrocuted. You wouldn't tell someone they can't have kids, so don't tell them they can't have pets. Benjamin, she's very much aligned with what you're saying there, I think.
I mean, I once had, well, not the smoke alarm, but the other alarm that you have to have in flats.
Carbon monoxide?
Yeah, and the lady in the flat next door left her hob on and the gas was all leaking into my flat and there was no monoxide checker, and so I could have died, which would have been terrible.
Yeah, there you go.
That's an interesting point, because I don't think landlords were saying, OK, look, we won't have pets. What Labour said is you have to have pets, but the tenant will have to have insurance should they damage. They've now dropped that. So now you have to have a pet, and if it damages your flat, well, tough.
Yeah, true. Well, final one here before we move on. Mel says, when referring to Jeff Bezos' wedding in Venice, Benjamin says it proves money can't buy you class and good taste. I would love for someone to give me a few million and let me find out for myself if that's true. I don't know. If you do get a lucky day, Mel, let me know, and well, maybe we can join together and find out. But now it's time for this. Yes, it's Bunch of Five, a slightly different take on the news of the week. Will's going to kick us off. What have you got for us?
Yeah, Alex, it's a story for our times, and indeed, doesn't it say so much about the age in which we live that a card-carrying, self-described socialist may well soon be the mayor of the economic engine of the world? Yes, Zoran Mamdani, a 33-year-old former rapper, has just won the Democratic primaries for the mayoral role in New York. If you win the Democratic primaries, then you're a very, very good shot. In fact, an overwhelming favourite to go on to actually take the vote in about 6 months' time. Some of his policies, you know, let's see if we have tried these before with success. Tax white neighbourhoods more. Socialised grocery stores, ask the Soviet Union how that went. Free buses, free childcare, keep shaking the money tree. It's all very depressing, but the interesting thing is there is a story here, and that is that the people who voted for him weren't the struggling working classes. They actually went to Andrew Cuomo. The people who voted for him overwhelmingly were in the more affluent parts of New York, those liberal elites who socialism doesn't directly impact as much as the working classes. This is another win for those woke, rich people that are now slowly taking over London, New York and every major city.
And importantly as well, he's very pro-Palestine.
Well,
I didn't even get into that. Yeah.
So not only, you're right, these are luxury views. These are the people that are voting for this man who has been hideously anti-Semitic, and he's going into New York, which has a big Jewish population. It is disgusting that he could even get this role. No one with those views should get a role of power.
But then it shows you the danger of not looking after the people that actually live in cities. When even good earners can barely afford to live in London or New York, then they start to elect people that are pretty unpleasant, as he is in my view. But the only thing I'd say is the other guy against him, the more moderate Democrat, was a guy called Andrew Cuomo, who was accused of being a sex pest by some women. He denied it. But how the Democrats went from saying you can't have Donald Trump because he's accused of bad things like that to then having a guy in their own selection, it wasn't great.
OK, right, next story. Renee.
OK, so I have a story which I thought was quite fun, but actually I thought there was a medical end to this as well. Emma Thompson this week said that friends of her age are actually hiring men for sex because sex was very important when you get older, and a lot of women, their relationships break down and it's bad for your mental health. So she actually suggested that perhaps sex should be given on the NHS. Now, as a doctor, whilst I wouldn't go as far as to say we should be prescribing sex on the NHS, I know some people would like that to happen.
Don't look in my direction, Renee.
Where would we subscribe it?
I do think that actually doctors should be taking a proactive role, talking to their women and men of a certain age about their sex lives and whether or not there's help that we give men, obviously, in the form of tablets. There's women we could give advice to on how important it is for their mental health. And connection with people and sex is critical for mental health.
OK.
Can I ask, have you ever said to a patient...
Benjamin!
No.
She can't charge for it on the NHS Constitution, Benjamin.
Have you ever said to a patient, I think this might be a part of why you're struggling, why you're unhappy?
So I have talked to patients about all aspects of their life and their social connections and their partners, yeah.
I mean, you do see there's a lot of lonely men, isn't it? A lot of depressed, sad, lonely men. It probably would be a good thing. I mean, it shouldn't be, and I'm sure you're all right travelling the world. It shouldn't be prescribed on the NHS, but it should be spoken about. It's very important.
This is government-subsidised prostitution. Can we call it for what it is? Let's not intellectualise this too much.
OK. I think we should move on from this one, actually, before this show gets taken off air. Right, well, in 2023, Rachel Reeves promised you, and there's lots of promises, we all know that, she promised you she'd crack down on Tory jets being used. Well, take a little look at this clip and I'll tell you a bit more about it.
We will crack down on Tory ministers' private jet habit. What is Rishi Sunak so scared of up there in his private jet? Meeting a voter? Well, we will properly enforce the ministerial code on the use of private planes and save millions of pounds for taxpayers in the process.
Interesting that, isn't it, Rachel? Because if my maths are correct, David Lammy spent £1.3 million plus on flights overseas. Not only that, Keir Starmer constantly berated Rishi Sunak for his use of flying around to get to different countries. Well, Keir Starmer spent, I think, almost 25% of his entire premiership so far abroad. It's almost like he's hiding from something, isn't it? Running away, perhaps from Nigel Farage, Benjamin?
No, I think this is complete nonsense. I mean, David Lammy's literally the Foreign Secretary, and we have international problems. I want them to be dealing face-to-face with those people that can help Britain.
What about Ed Miliband flying around the world?
We've got to move on, unfortunately, but yes, we all know at home it's just hypocrisy, isn't it? Trey, what have you got for us?
OK, so what I've got this week is the weight loss jabs that have been linked to hundreds of cases of life-threatening illnesses, including things like... Dr. Renner, you'd be great at this. Yeah, death, exactly. So we look at things like Mounjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy. Lots of people have been falling ill with these drugs, and especially things around the pancreatitis, etc. Yeah.
There've been blindness. They do very bad things to the eyes.
Yeah.
We're seeing now on a daily basis that there are common things. Mounjaro's not even been in practice for more than 6 months, and there've been 10 deaths from pancreatitis.
This is nonsense. I'm getting the roundup, but very quickly, you have to call out when someone has an illness and they're also on a drug that there may be a risk there. It's correlation, not necessarily
No, this isn't.
causation.
I'm sorry.
And then you've got to look at
you've
got to look at the cost.
No,
I think the drug is being abused, isn't it, a little bit?
We know now that Mounjaro has a known cause of pancreatitis. It's literally in their leaflet.
Right.
And we know obesity causes cancer.
We'll talk about this in the Bunch 5. We've got to go to what Benjamin's got.
I've got Nazi news. So there is a new head of MI6, a woman who goes by the name of Blaise Metroweli. An unusual name. Turns out it comes from Georgia often and Ukraine. Now, we know almost nothing about this woman, but it turns out her grandfather was a Soviet spy who defected to Hitler's Nazi Germany, was called the Butcher, and was one of the most infamous spies of his time. He personally murdered Jewish people, celebrated Nazi Germany, and that is the paternal grandfather of our new chief foreign intelligence officer, which, no reflection on her, but an unbelievable background.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it matters if you... I mean, it's like blaming people for colonisation from hundreds of years ago. It's like, she didn't commit those crimes, did she? She wasn't a butcher.
And I guess if he defected from the Soviets to the Nazis, he was obviously a pretty incredible spy. So, hopefully she's as good a spy, but for all the right reasons.
Well, very briefly, go on. You've been moaning and groaning over there. Very briefly, go on.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
But is anyone else just a bit uncomfortable about this?
Yeah, well, no.
No.
The granddad, I mean, come on. No.
OK, fair.
No.
Cheerfully withdrawn.
I think, if anything, I'm worried about her being woke. That pride flag is still flying over MI5.
I'm worried about her being promoted because she was a woman.
Well, potentially so. Potentially so. Still to come tonight, though, more triggered tantrums. Quick, take a look at this.
My body isn't the problem. The system is.
Yeah, my body's not the problem, the system is. Trigger Tantrums is next. They are brilliant every week. You're going to want to stay with us on the Saturday 5. See you shortly.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
French authorities first seized the Lady T, and that's an Eastbourne-based fishing vessel. And next, they fined its skipper, Philip Edwards, €30,000 to release his boat. Now, the Lady T, operating legally under UK jurisdiction, was intercepted by a French patrol ship near the Somme Bay. Now, the incident has sparked massive outrage among British fishermen and is renewing calls for the government to stand firm against French overreach in national waters. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joining with Charlotte Edwards, who's the husband. Husband Philip is the skipper of the Lady T and is out fishing right now. Charlotte, welcome to the show. I've got to say, here at GB News, we are hugely supportive and appreciative of British fishermen and fisherwomen. Do a fantastic job. So if you're nervous about the interview, please don't be. I want to ask you how on earth this happened. I mean, there's been a lot of talk, for example, that the Lady T didn't have the correct paperwork, it was fishing illegally, and the French decided to pounce. What's the reality?
The paperwork just slipped through. It was an admin error. The other two boats had the permits, and unfortunately, his didn't at the time. He wasn't in as far in as they said he was. He was about 800 metres in their water. He wasn't near the 12-mile.
He was intercepted by the Pluvier. That's a French Navy ship. No, by the way, the sort of French Navy ships that just seem to give an escort to illegal dinghies coming into British waters, suddenly pouncing into action. The only boat they've managed to stop seems to be the Lady T.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Coming up from 8 p.m, it is Ask the 5. Send your questions in, gbnews.com/yoursay. I have loads of them here on my laptop, so we'll be reading them out very soon. But now, of course, it's time for Triggered Tantrums. It's your free ticket to this week's Ringmasters of Rage, Clowns of Collapse and Acrobats of Absurdity, all tumbling over zilch. Just wait until you get a lot of these people. Will, what have you got for us?
Yep, as we've been broadcasting, it is Glastonbury weekend, so I've gone into the archives for this classic from Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. See if you can pick out the logical inconsistency in Jeremy's comments.
If you can see that far, look on the wall right over there that surrounds this wonderful festival. And there's a message on that wall for President Donald Trump. And you know what it says? Build bridges, not walls.
The irony of the man.
Yeah. So it's good for the kind of the bourgeois middle class who are raving at Glastonbury, but otherwise we should have a wallless open society. Right. Is that right, Jerry?
Yeah. You spend hundreds of pounds on a ticket, you are welcome within the wall. There we go. Isn't that just the beautiful hypocrisy of the left? Yeah. Renee, what have you got for us?
OK, you know, we talk often of the delusion of people with red hair who say they've been born in the wrong body. Well, look at this.
Hi! Can you tell me about your dog?
This is Honey. He is a gay, gender-fluid golden retriever Afghan hound mix.
Yes! How did you know that he was gay?
We have another dog named Charlie. He's about 7 years older than Honey, and they are completely inseparable.
Oh, hi! Happy Pride!
Happy Pride! Benjamin, what do you make of? I really need to hear what you think about this.
I think gay dogs better.
Oh, do you know, I'm going to go home and look at my kids tonight with a different mind.
I mean, you know what? Most giraffes are bisexual, for example. So you do get this across the animal spectrum. I don't know about gender fluid. That one's a bit harder to predict. But it could be a homosexual.
Oh, that really tickled me. We've got more triggered tantrums, of course, coming up at 8 o'clock, and you're not going to want to miss them because they're just as ridiculous. So don't go anywhere, because Saturday 5 Extra, we're all going to get a pint. We're going to chill out. It's pretty wild because, you know, literally, Will can't handle his drink. He goes one pint in and he goes crazy. So get ready. We'll be back very, very shortly, and we will see you for the Saturday 5 Extra.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been a very warm day for many of us today, and that heat continues to build over the next couple of days, particularly across the southeast, all thanks to an area of high pressure that's building from the south of the UK, pushing its way north and eastwards over the next couple of days. We do still have this weather front across northern areas, though. That will continue to bring some cloud and rain as we head through the rest of Saturday evening, mainly across northwestern parts of England, perhaps into northern parts of Wales, southwest England too. But elsewhere, generally a dry night to come, plenty of clear spells into the early hours of Sunday morning, and a very mild night to come too. Temperatures in the south not dropping below the high teens for many places. A little fresher further north, but still staying well into the double figures for most places. So a very mild start to the day on Sunday, perhaps still quite a cloudy start across parts of Wales, southwest England. We could continue to see some outbreaks of patchy rain and drizzle. Elsewhere in England, though, generally a dry and bright start to the morning, and a similar picture too across parts of Northern Ireland. Scotland generally seeing some early sunshine as well, plenty of clear and blue skies through the morning. One or two isolated showers across the very far northeast, but elsewhere staying dry to start on Sunday. That cloud does continue across parts of Wales, southwest England as we head through the afternoon. Maybe one or two isolated showers just feeding into Northern Ireland, and some longer spells of rain into northwest Scotland too. But elsewhere, generally staying dry, plenty of sunshine on offer as we head through Sunday afternoon. And again, feeling really warm across the southeast, highs of 29, 30, potentially 31 degrees, and even across parts of Scotland into the low 20s. A very mild start to the day on Monday, potentially a little warmer start on Monday compared to Sunday. The northwest does continue to see some outbreaks of potentially quite heavy rain feeding in from the northwest, but for much of England and Wales, a dry and bright afternoon to come. And the temperatures likely peaking on Monday or Tuesday, around 34, potentially 35 degrees, but then feeling fresher by the middle of the week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row. So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.